Hi, in this video, we'll use Bindbox to build the backend of a task list in just a few minutes. You'll see how easy it is to start with and how fast you get the results. Using Bindbox, you'll save countless hours. Once we've finished, we'll have an operational backend that exposes a GraphQL API. Use it to connect a web or a mobile app. It's also suitable for front-end frameworks such as React, Vue.js, or through some no-code tool. If you don't have a Bindbox account yet, go to bindbox.io and sign up. We'll build a software backend to manage tasks to be carried out within the company. A software of these characteristics should meet the following basic requirements: create tasks, delete tasks, mark tasks as active, mark tasks as completed, get the list of tasks. In this tutorial, we'll see how to solve two of these requirements: create tasks and get the list of tasks. The remaining three are a challenge for you. The model required for this software is only one: task with property titles, description, and status. If we represented these in a diagram, it would look like this. Once we're clear about the requirements and our model data, we can start creating our backend with Bindbox. When entering the Bindbox editor, the first thing we see is the page with our projects. At the moment, it's empty. To create a new project, click on the New Project button. Then indicate the name and a short description. By pressing the Create button, Bindbox will create and configure a space to develop our backend. It will also build the deployment process and create a database automatically. Once the creation of the project is finished, we are directed to the interface to work on the newly created project. This interface is made up of three main sections. On the left side, we see the explorer of the different workflows that we're creating and the project data diagram. In the center, we can see and edit the workflows and the project data diagram. On the right side, we'll find the available nodes to create and edit the workflows. Furthermore, we can deploy our project as a GraphQL API with just a few clicks. The first thing we need to do is build our data diagram in Bindbox. For this, we click on the Models button on the left side of the editor. When we do this, we see the following screen. It's important to note that Bindbox synchronizes the data model with the database schema as one. To create a new model, simply drag the model node from the right panel to the editing area. By doing so, it creates a new model and opens its configuration. Within the configuration, we indicate the name of the model and its properties. Finally, we confirm the information by pressing the Save button. The properties are title, description, and status. For each of them, we must type a name, select the data type, the length, and if it's mandatory or not. Most of the editor fields include a help icon next to it. Hover your mouse over the icon to see more information about a certain field. Once we define the model, we'll begin to create the workflows that'll give life to our backend. The first workflow we create is Create Task. For this, we press the Add Workflow button, located on the left side. We indicate a name for the new workflow. We'll call it Add Task, because it represents what the process will do. Optionally, you can add a description. Finally, we press the Create button. Once the workflow is created, it appears in the bar on the left side. When we open it, we'll see something like the following. All workflows have an initial node called Start, whose goal is to receive external data as argument to the workflow. The workflow that we've just created needs external data in order to create a new task. Title, description, and status values must come from the outside of the workflow context. To add these attributes as arguments, double-click on the Start node, and its configuration will open. The first thing we must do is add a name to the node. Then we indicate the node parameters. If you're familiar with software development, the workflow resembles a function, and these parameters of the workflows resemble the parameters or arguments that a function receives. To finish the node configuration, press the Save button. Now, we must record the information received at the initial node into the database that was created automatically for this project. To create new records in the database, we use the Add node that we can find on the right side. To use them, we simply drag that node to the workflow and then connect it to the Start node. It's important to connect the nodes before configuring them. As with the previous node, we double-click on the Add node and configure it to save the information received within the task model. Note that this configuration is different from that of the previous node. This makes sense because the goal of this node is different. The first thing is to indicate a name for the node, then select the model in which we want to save this information. Finally, indicate what value of those received in the start node we'll save here. At this point, we're already registering the task. It only remains to return the operation result to the front end. For this, we add a return node to the workflow and bind it to the add node. When entering the configuration, we must define the name and select the information to be returned. In this case, it's the task saved by the add node. Once the configuration is confirmed, we'll have our first complete workflow. We must save the changes in the project by pressing the Save button on the right side. You can also save by pressing Ctrl+S or Command+S if you're using a Mac. The next requirement we'll solve is get the list of tasks. For this, we'll create a new workflow using the Add Workflow button on the left side. We name it as Get All Tasks. Finally, we press the Create button. This workflow must retrieve all the registered tasks from the database and return them to the front end. In this case, the start node does not need input parameters, so we'll only indicate a name. Then we add a search node that allows us to search and retrieve the previously stored information. Here, we must indicate we want to retrieve the information from the task model. We're not going to add search conditions because we need all the stored tasks. This node handles concepts very similar to those of SQL to make a query to the database. To finish the workflow, we must add a node that returns the information retrieved by the search node to the front end. As you may have guessed, we'll use the return node. In the configuration of this node, we indicate a name and the information it must return. In this case, it'll be the list of tasks that were obtained with the search node added in the previous step. At this point, we already have the first version of our backend. To see it working, we simply have to click on the Launch button at the top end of the right bar and choose the Develop environment. By clicking on this button, the deployment process starts, which converts the workflows that you see in the editor into a fully functional backend. This backend will be exposed as a GraphQL API. GraphQL offers many benefits over other technologies like REST. Visit the GraphQL website to learn more. Once the deployment is complete, you're going to see the backend we just built as a GraphQL API in the Docs section. Bindbox provides a tool called Playground that allows us to interact directly with the backend's API. This is ideal in the development stage, as you don't need to create a front-end application to test your changes. Bindbox builds a schema that includes the created model together with the workflows, so we can use them directly to execute the actions. Now, we only have to see that our backend works. For this, we'll use the workflow Add Task to create a task. On the left side, we can write the operation. To execute the operation, we press the Center button and receive the result on the right side. Then, to verify that the information is indeed stored, we execute the workflow Get All Tasks. By executing this workflow, the entered tasks are obtained, in this case only one, the one we've just inserted. Now that we confirm that everything works correctly, we must deploy our changes to the production environment. For this, we click on the Deploy Project button, located in the lower right corner, and then select the workflows that we want to deploy. Once the deployment has finished, we can launch the production environment by clicking on the Launch button at the top end of the right bar and choose the production environment that is called Master. And that's it. We've built a backend just by defining what we need and without writing a single line of code. It's also ready for use in production environments. And best of all, is that you don't have to worry about anything because Bindbox provides the infrastructure, the deployment process, and the scalability on demand. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you soon!